And what do you think makes a country a just place?
I think that having churches and God and religion and good people makes our country just.
The laws that people live by, because if the laws are fair, then the country is fair, and if you follow the laws, then the country becomes a more justice place.
The country believing in something and having a religion that is strong so that they overcome difficulties.
What does a just country look like? Our youth group believes that religion, fairness, and following the laws are important. But who's God? What religion? And what makes a law fair? Our country struggles with all of these questions.
What does just mean?
One way of looking at the meaning of justice is to say that everyone should get what is owed to them. From a Catholic perspective, that means that the world and its resources do not belong to a select few. Everyone, especially the poor, are owed a share of the world's wealth. Pope Francis has been very vocal about social justice. He said, "I encourage the financial experts and the political leaders of your countries to consider the words of St. John Chrysostom. Not to share one's goods with the poor is to rob them and to deprive them of life. It's not our goods that we possess, but theirs." Does that challenge you?
Place.
Well, if we're speaking like, what's it called? I forgot the word for it. Like, justicely, I think laws make it the best place, because without laws, everything would be chaos. Without rules, everyone would be like, yeah, or there were like murders will happen, like, and then like, I lost the word. Theft would happen, so many bad stuff. There would be like, everyone would be just like in a jumble, but also a good country also needs a good person to like, not watch over it, but like a president, someone that will keep it in order and make sure everyone's okay in it.
They are right. Good laws, moral citizens, and sound political order are necessary for social justice. If we are to act justicely, then some fair order is needed. For the Catholic, freedom is not just freedom from government oppression, but freedom to be who God made us to be. It's the freedom to be excellent in every way. Laws are important because without fair communal standards of justice, we would live in chaos. Sin is a reality, but without people capable of freedom, rooted in a moral order, there can never be enough police and laws to make a country just. So as one of our young people observed,
I think a country is an unjust place if like there's no corruption or like any gullible people and anybody that can be bought easily. I think if everybody's like steadfast in that country, like there's no problems.
but isn't there something more to justice than just the absence of corrupt or gullible people? What if the laws or the economic system are unjust? Socialism, there's an economic system. It says that if people, through their government, control the means of production, then the government can ensure that the common good is observed and the country will be a just place. Capitalists don't agree. Capitalists say, on the other hand, that the government should stay out of business, and the best way to make the world a just place is to allow individuals to use their talents to benefit the common good. So according to the church, who is right? The church does not trust schemes that rob people of individual freedoms. The church also does not trust economic schemes that allow a small group of people to exercise their freedom in a way that deprives others of access to the goods of the world. For instance, the popes are critical of socialism, where a group of people deprive people of owning land and the means of production. They're going to take over everything. At the same time, the popes have been critical of the idea that freedom has no moral order and that, for instance, greed is a virtue. A free market is not possible without moral virtue. What good is private property without moral and legal restrictions on stealing? And so as for capitalism, It has to be founded in moral virtue. The church urges healthy legal and moral restrictions on individual economic behavior and on governments. At the same time, the church distrusts the idea that the big brother knows best. The church is against a government that robs individuals of their access to the goods of the world. Likewise, the church is against a government that guards a few people's rights to wealth at the expense of the many. Does that mean that justice is...
Think makes a country a just place.
Equality.
Are people really equal? Should we all be treated exactly the same? Is that even possible? I mean, we know that there are some people who are smarter, healthier, and just more capable than I am. How can everybody be equal? Equality in a just world means that everyone should have access to the goods of the nation. Everybody should be able to provide for their social security. Should we be better off if everyone has to fend for themselves to get what is coming to them and that ensure that they'll be treated equally? Or are we better off if the government has a responsibility of making sure that everyone is treated equally? The dichotomy between the community and the individual is contained in two basic principles of Catholic social teaching that are very important: subsidiarity and solidarity.
Just place.
I think a country needs like fairness and like to treat people like the same, no matter like how they act and like what their religion and stuff is.
Subsidiarity is the principle that says that problems affecting the individual and the common good of that individual with all the other individuals should be decided at the lowest level of society that is practical. People ought to be free to be their own true selves. Families should be able to decide for themselves matters concerning the education and care of their children. The state should provide some basic protections for children and spouses so that they don't become prey to violence and abandonment. But families ought to be free to raise their children without some circumscribed limits of acceptable behavior imposed by the government. If you have a traffic problem, it's better to have a local solution than to call in the federal government. People ought to be involved in decisions that affect their daily lives. That's a good way for people to be treated as a person, not a number. So what role does a just society have for the larger community, including the government?
It needs people to cooperate.
The Catholic principle of solidarity is the understanding that we are responsible for each other. People need to cooperate for the common good. Everything and everyone is connected to one another through God. Extreme notions of individualism undermine communal solidarity, either in proposing that greed is good or that individual pursuits have no substantial limitations. Solidarity is premised on the belief that there is a common good that needs to be protected by moral and legal restrictions from abuse by individuals or groups of individuals. Solidarity and subsidiarity are always in tension. Solidarity without subsidiarity leads to the evils made apparent in the totalitarian world, where the central government controls industry, morality, religion, education, and social life. Subsidiarity without solidarity leads to anarchism and extreme notions of individualism. Both the community and the individual, solidarity and subsidiarity, are key human components underlying Catholic social teaching. In Catholicism, both and are the marks of our doctrine. We avoid extremes. Catholicism loves red and white, but abhors pink. To be a Catholic is to embrace complexity. Everyone should have access to the goods of creation. We should have just laws and a just economic system. We should be free to be individuals, but we must support a healthy community life. If a country pays attention to these attitudes towards justice, what can we hope for?
Places where everyone is happy and has like a good feeling going.